Super nervous. Don't feel like I've got good lighting. I think that I might be backwards. Of course, that's backwards. It's probably fine on the video. Yeah, I guess it's fine. Okay. Hi, my name is Erin Collette. Hi. Hi, my name is Lisa Erin Collette, and I'm an artist, and I'm based in Manta, Utah. And this painting that I'm going to talk about today is a little hard uh, to talk about. It's also maybe a little hard to look at. It's dealing with some serious mental health issues that I think a lot of women struggle with, and a lot of issues that I struggle with as far as like just trying to balance being a woman and wanting to be more than just a mom. Feeling like that because I was a woman, born a woman, that I didn't have a choice in being a mom. And some of that's mostly my culture and my upbringing and what I had thought in my early 20s was expected of me. And there's a lot of cultural abuse that has happened, a lot of religious abuse, most of it unknowing. So as I've researched into exactly what abuse is, as far as everybody like, okay, yeah, you get hit or raped or whatever, that's so obvious that it's abuse. But the harder um, illnesses or abuses or crazy making feelings that come from neglect and isolation and discounting and gaslighting and all these verbal, emotional, mental abuses. It is really hard to pinpoint and even to recognize, or I'm finding to correct, as far as like getting it out of your head. The abuses that I experienced created a lot of self doubt, which makes it really difficult when you're trying to set your boundaries to stand up for yourself and also to hold the boundary line because you have been conditioned for so long through gaslighting and discounting and minimizing and all these other uh, behaviors where you are unseen and unheard and not respected and your opinion doesn't count. And so when you go to try to stand up for yourself, you find it very difficult to actually do that. And you find that as soon as you meet a little bit of conflict, you start to back down and you go into feign or um, hide or flight. You're not even good at fighting because you've learned that fighting hurts more than just running away. And and when the people that usually don't respect boundaries, it's really hard to reinforce boundaries because when you go to reinforce that boundary, it's just another boundary that they don't respect. And they just see the reinforcement as another thing that they don't respect. And so then you're continuing to be disrespected. And so even though boundaries are important to have, they're not always easy to set and they're not always easy to maintain. And you get a lot of crap from people when you decide to walk away from a relationship that's not working. And so today is my wedding anniversary to my fourth husband. We've been married 12 years. Number two and number three were short lived. They didn't last more than 6 months. And most of my reasoning for marrying those people were based on religious factors where I was trying to be a good saint and do the appropriate thing by marrying them instead of sleeping with them. Um, at the time, there was a lot of psychological confusion going on, and in my religion at the time, psychology is not really viewed as a legit thing. And they say it is, but then they treat you like it's not. At least that was my experience. Whenever I tried to bring um, my experience to my ecclesiastical leader, it was just, I was usually received with the idea that I wasn't spiritual enough, or that I didn't understand Jesus Christ, or that I didn't understand how to partake of the atonement, or that, I mean, I even had one ecclesiastical leader tell me that my countenance was too dark and that like, I needed more repentance. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff there, and that's not what this painting is about, but it does contribute. It definitely contributes, because every time you have someone who is gaslighting you, be it from a religion or a workplace or a family member, it is really hard, because you're supposed to trust those people, and that makes the self-doubt even bigger. Like if it's a freaking stranger, who cares what they say? They don't know you, they don't know your situation. But when it comes from somebody that you feel like is supposed to understand you or see you or know you, know your history, your past, and all that stuff, then you give it more weight. You give it more attention, as far as like an expectation. So with that being said, over the last couple months, as I worked on this piece, it really made me realize how hard, I guess, and like no matter how much I've read, no matter how much I've studied, no matter how much I've worked, I have felt like the hardest thing for me to overcome has been self-doubt. And I have been living as a slave for a very long time. And it's not necessarily because my husband now treats me that way. It's because I treat myself that way, which is a really big difference, because my first husband definitely treated me that way. And he conditioned me in some really deep ways that have been just ridiculous to unravel. And but I did set a precedence in this marriage that, you know, I complained a lot that, oh, well, after we'd been married so many months, then he behaved a certain way, and I didn't realize that's who I was marrying, and now I'm stuck with this person that doesn't have any interests with me, and I don't know what to do. But now I've got to flip that script, and now I'm looking at myself saying, guess what? Because you weren't honest about who you were, and you weren't honest with yourself, now he is looking at me saying, this isn't who I married, and what happened, and why all of a sudden are you changing? And a lot of it is just because, first of all, I finally know what to say. And really, it is thanks to him giving me the space to heal. But it's still hard. I'm setting new boundaries that he wasn't used to. I'm asking for things and kind of drawing my line in the sand, saying I can't do this anymore. And that's hard when you're used to being a different way, no matter what. And so, like, for the last couple of months, we've been like 5 minutes from separating, and that's been hard. But at the same time, it's been what's needed to happen for me to grow. And so far we're still together, but it's still rocky because there's a lot of stuff I'm trying to work through, and things that from my childhood, from past marriage, from this marriage, just from life in general. And I think that there's a lot of women, and maybe, well, there's a lot of people. I can't just say this is isolated to women. It's just that women are the only people I have to relate to because I'm a woman. And for a long time, I actually wished I was a man from the time I was 8. And at first, when I started designing this piece for the show that it was going to be in, I was thinking about transgender issues and how I felt that there's a lot of resentment that has come from me being born a woman and not feeling like I had a choice in motherhood, and feeling like that career always has to take the back seat, and then being in relationships where the career has always taken the back seat, and feeling like I'm always fighting for my career, always fighting, always in relationships where the person I'm with does not understand the creative process or doesn't understand why it's so important to me. And so that's been really difficult, and I haven't known how to choose something different because I was raised with that same mentality where finding people to be in relationships with like that was just a part of normal. And it's taken me a long time to realize that that doesn't have to be normal and that doesn't have to be a part of my life. And this piece is really instrumental in my career because probably it is the most personal piece I've ever done. It is the most raw, the most uncomfortable, and usually my themes I stick to religious, esoteric, divine feminine, non-traditional scriptures, looking externally for a Heavenly Mother, looking for an alternative narrative to mainstream, not just Mormonism, but Christianity. Searching, I use art as part of my research. I probably do more research than I do painting because I'm searching for answers, and they're still connected though to the mental health, because my mental health is what's pushed me down these roads of these paths to figure out what it means to be a woman. What does it mean to be, what is the definition of divine nature? You know, I grew up with this young women's thing where divine nature was part of this little phrase we would repeat every Sunday. But what does it mean? And especially when everything that's considered divinity is so male. So having that as the background, it's really what has pushed me to help me find healing in my mental health. Where's my Heavenly Mother? How do I turn to her for help to relate to? I need a female divinity to feel relatable. I need to understand what my own divinity is because I'm not male. I need to be able to look past the male gaze. I need to be able to understand the whole Adam and Eve dilemma, right? And how do I use these things to become a stronger person? How do I use these things to embrace and accept my own femininity because I've resented it for so long? I've viewed it as a weakness, and because I have viewed it as a weakness, I believe that it has been a catalyst in my hardship. Bitter, angry, resentful, and I have things that have reinforced that bitter, anger, resentment though. So with that being said, we're going to start with this painting. So a couple of months ago, my husband and I had a little bit of a tiff, and this painting here, this first panel, is where this idea for all of these panels began. Was feeling like I was carrying this weight that was just really heavy. And, you know, looking at it through here, I'm like, actually, it doesn't look that heavy. It is empty, though, and with a big, giant, heavy lion on it. But the idea was that I feel like I'm always carrying a weight of some kind of weight. And when I started developing this image, I realized that there was more to it. And the things that were here, the things that were on her, and I wasn't sure if I was going to use symbolism or words, but then it just was like I have to just use words, because the transparency of the reality of the things that happen to women that are abused can't be symbolically, gosh, I'm sorry, it needs to be transparent. So I have unseen written on her forehead, because so much of the time you feel unseen in your mind. Your mind is unseen. They don't care about what's up here. You know, the people that are abusing you, they don't care what you can think, what you know. Discounted is a word that I have experienced a lot, so I put it over my heart because it hurts. Objectified is right here, and you can't see it very well. I don't think I can